In this video, let's take a look at a feature that's new in TPC Desktop 2025. And it's the ability to close traverses with point codes. So I brought up the program settings here in the point code tab. And you can see that Traverse BC it's like a code, but with a different delimiter. So we're using the -- for code delimiters when we have multiple codes within an attribute or description. And we're going to use a .cls for closure. Now you can put your own code in here. We brought in data from an emlid project that we did, and you can see I've highlighted building 1 here, and emlid says I'm going to bring in the 4 points 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in emlid flow I can say I want to close that. So that's how we got this extra line here. And emlid includes a control code in the CSV file. Well, when Traverse BC imported that, it said, okay, I saw that close code in the control code from emlid, so I'm going to put in this code we talked about, this .cls, which is part of the point codes, and it says this is how I'm going to close that traverse. Now, this data is in the attribute. This could also be in the description. The emlid reach happens to bring it into the attribute. So we've got the point code, building 1, and in addition to having codes have that delimiter, Traverse BC can also recognize the first word in the attribute or description as a code. So it knows that building 1 is a code, and by the way, it happens to be a variant. Variants are also new to TPC Desktop 2025. And then we have this .cls here. So let's go ahead and just sort this. We've got our building, and I'm going to tell Traverse BC I want to sort that into points. And I'm going to tell Traverse BC I want to create, well, let's not do that. Let's just insert the gap. So I'm going to create one traverse called BLDG. It's the point code, but I'm going to keep track of those variants. And every time I get to the end of a variant and it switches variants, I'm going to insert a gap, but I'm also going to close it. So I have the same number of points. I just need to have extra closure in there. Let's go ahead and say, okay, let's come back to our traverses and tag that. Okay, look what it did. It closed building 1, building 2, building 3 was this one up here that doesn't close. So I'm going to put a gap in there. And this is the building 4. Now these are all in one traverse, but let's open up that traverse and I'll do single lines here. And you can see that in building 1 down here, we brought in the same 4 points that emlid had. And then because of that closure command, we repeated point 1, which was the first code in the building 1 variant. Then we came down to the next one and we said, okay, that starts with 5. We had 4 points again. We just inserted point 5 to close it. This next one didn't have a closure. It's that open building up here at the top. And then finally the last one, we started with 13, and before we left this traverse, we recalled 13 to close it. So Traverse BC now with point codes is able to take this closure command. We don't care how you get that in there with any kind of a data collector. You can type it in manually if you need to, but you can tell Traverse BC that when it goes ahead and sorts points into traverses based on point codes, as the command I did here, go ahead and read that closure command. And when you see it, regardless of whether you're creating a separate traverse for each variant or you're putting all the variants in a single traverse, regardless of whether or not you're including a gap between variants, in all those situations, Traverse BC will create these closed figures for you because of that new closure command in the point codes. Let's take a look at that one last time. Settings, point codes, here's that closure command. Put in whatever you want. New in TPC Desktop 2025.